Single dad janitor's daughter begged to sleep in a doghouse. The CEO's response changed their lives. The night was colder than usual, and the janitor's shoes squeaked against the marble floors of the towering corporate building. Each step echoed through the empty halls, sounding louder in the silence of midnight. Mark Johnson tightened his grip on the mop handle, though his hands already felt raw from hours of scrubbing. His shoulders ached, his back burned, but he pushed on. At the far end of the hallway, tucked in the janitor's closet, sat Amelia, his 7-year-old daughter. She was small for her age, with big brown eyes and a backpack almost half her size. That backpack carried nearly everything she owned: 2 sets of clothes, a worn teddy bear missing an ear, and a notebook filled with drawings she made to pass the time. Tonight, like every night, she sat cross-legged on the floor, coloring on scraps of discarded office paper her father had saved for her. It wasn't the life Mark wanted for her. He used to dream of a house with a white fence, a backyard where Emily could chase butterflies, a bookshelf full of bedtime stories. But dreams had a way of slipping through his fingers ever since his wife passed away suddenly 5 years ago. Cancer had claimed her life, and in the space of a few months, Mark found himself widowed, broken, and raising a toddler alone. He worked 2 jobs, day shifts at a warehouse and nights here as a janitor, but even that hadn't saved them from losing their small apartment when rent increased. For weeks, he tried to scrap together enough for motels, but the money barely covered food. Eventually, he had no choice but to bring Emily with him during night shifts, hoping no one would notice. She was quiet, obedient, and never complained. Emily would always put on a brave smile, curling up on a folded jacket and whispering, "It's like camping, Daddy, this is fun." But Mark knew she was only pretending, trying to ease his burden. That hurt him more than anything else. Tonight, however, something happened that broke him completely. Emily tugged gently at his sleeve as he wrung out the mop. Her voice was soft, almost apologetic, but her words hit like a hammer. "Dad, you broken bar, can I sleep in the doghouse outside?" Mark froze. For a moment, he thought he had misheard. He turned to face her. "The doghouse? Sweetheart, a broken bar, why would you want that?" Emily's eyes, wide and innocent, flickered toward the parking lot she had seen earlier. The security guard kept a German shepherd in a kennel by the gate. Next to the kennel was a wooden doghouse, small but sturdy, with a blanket inside. "Because it looks warm," she said simply. "And it has a roof. Better than this floor here." Her words sliced through Mark's chest. He gripped the mop tighter, struggling to breathe. What kind of father had he become, that his little girl believed a doghouse was more comfortable than anywhere he could give her? Before he could answer, a sound interrupted the heavy silence. The sharp click of heels on marble echoed down the corridor. Mark's stomach twisted. He knew he wasn't supposed to have Emily here. If management found out, he could lose his job, and then they'd have nothing. The figure that appeared was none other than Claire Reynolds, the CEO of the company. Claire was known throughout the city as a powerhouse, confident, brilliant, and unshakably composed. Tonight, she wore a tailored coat, her blonde hair neatly tied back, her heels tapping softly as she walked. She had returned late from a business dinner to pick up some files she'd forgotten. She stopped when she saw the scene: a weary janitor, his little girl clutching a backpack, and eyes filled with hope as she talked about the doghouse. Claire tilted her head, her voice warm yet curious. "Why?" she asked gently. "Would you want to sleep in a doghouse, sweetheart?" Emily looked up at her without fear. Children had a way of sensing kindness, and Emily felt it in the stranger's voice. "Because it looks like it has a blanket and a roof," she said softly. "And it's not so cold." Claire's chest tightened. She looked at the girl's small hands, red from the chill, and then at Mark, whose face flushed with shame. He stammered, words tumbling out. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. We'll be out of your way soon. Please see broken bar, forgive us." But Claire didn't move past them. Instead, she crouched down so she was eye level with Emily. Carefully, she tucked a loose strand of hair behind the girl's ear. "No child should ever have to ask that," she whispered. Mark swallowed hard, fighting back tears. He had spent years hiding his struggles, burying them beneath pride and the need to provide. Yet here he was, completely exposed. The next morning, Mark was called to Claire's office. He walked in, bracing himself for the worst. Surely, this was the end of his job. Without income, he and Emily would be on the streets. But instead of reprimand, Claire offered him coffee. She asked him to sit. Her voice was calm but firm when she said, "Tell me what's really going on." Mark hesitated. His pride urged him to lie, to make excuses, but something in her eyes, something humana, convinced him to speak the truth. So he told her everything: the eviction, the endless hours, the exhaustion of trying to be both father and mother, and the nights of hiding Emily in supply closets. His voice cracked when he admitted he felt like a failure. Claire listened, really listened. She didn't interrupt, she didn't judge. She let silence fill the room until he had finished, and then she leaned forward. "You're not a failure, Mark," she said firmly. "You're a father doing everything in your power to protect your daughter. That's strength, not weakness." Then she did something that left him speechless. She offered him a promotion, and not as an act of charity, but because she had long noticed his work ethic. He never missed a shift. He went above and beyond, even when no one was watching. She had seen the gleam of freshly polished floors at dawn, the meticulous care with which he handled every task. Now, she wanted him to lead a small maintenance team with higher pay and benefits. On top of that, she connected him to a housing program the company quietly funded for struggling employees. It wasn't widely advertised, but Claire believed corporations had a responsibility to care for the people who kept them running. Within days, Mark and Emily moved into a modest two-bedroom apartment. When Emily first saw her new room, painted in soft yellow, with a pink blanket neatly folded on the bed, she squealed with joy. She ran to the window, pressing her palms against the glass as morning sunlight streamed in. "Daddy, we have windows," she shouted, her laughter filling the room. Mark knelt beside her, hugging her tightly. His eyes blurred with tears, but this time they were tears of gratitude. No longer would his daughter dream of sleeping in doghouses. She had a home, a place to belong. The transformation didn't stop there. Mark flourished in his new role, gaining confidence as he led his team. For the first time in years, he could come home in the evenings, cook dinner with Emily, and read her bedtime stories. On weekends, they visited the park, something he hadn't had time for before. Years later, Emily wrote an essay for school titled "The Night an Angel Saved Us." In it, she described how a CEO in high heels had knelt down to listen to a little girl who thought a doghouse was warmer than a janitor's closet. She wrote not about fairy tales, but about compassion, the kind that changes lives. Her teacher shared the essay at a local community event, and soon, the story spread. It reminded people that kindness doesn't always come in grand gestures. Sometimes it's in the choice to pause, to listen, and to act when it matters most. For Mark, walking the company halls years later no longer meant carrying a mop. It meant carrying dignity, respect, and the memory of the night everything changed. For Claire, it reaffirmed a belief she carried quietly all along: success means little if it isn't used to lift others up. Because sometimes, the smallest plea from a child can awaken the greatest humanity in us all.